Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, the Money Pit Group, Washington, D.C. We're on the road to the White House, and today we're going to talk about our proposed domestic agenda. This is going to be the general agenda of both my candidacy as well as the Independence Party for 2022 and going into the 2024 elections. Let's go down the list in no particular order, but each one of the points need to be covered. Here are the things that we must address in our domestic agenda. We must deal with inflation. When we listen to economists and the Republicans and the Democrats, everybody seems to think the only thing we can do to solve the inflation problem is raising interest rates. This is so not true. I've covered this in other videos, but the basic idea is we're going to take speculation out of the futures and commodities markets. Yes, interest rates have to be raised. Yes, folks have to curtail spending. We have to send a clear message to the suppliers of goods and services that the consuming public is not going to tolerate higher prices. There's no magic here, folks. There's no pixie dust or wishes. This is very simple. America was pumped full of money during the pandemic because the economy was closed down. As a result of that, every seller of products and services across the country saw this as an opportunity to raise their prices. They're guilty. And the way to solve this is very simple. As the consuming public, we tell them, no, we're not paying those prices. We'll come back to inflation later, but that's going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly, within days of me being sworn into the office of the presidency. Taxes. Taxes have to be reformed in this country. We're going to talk about taxes from different points in this video, but taxes are too high across the board. We have been living for decades with the wrong tax attitude. And there's a very clever way to deal with taxes and to deal with the expenditures of government and the benefits and all the rest of it. But amazingly, no one has thought about it. Well, I'm going to put some ideas on the table today, and this is going to be the direction that we go in as soon as I get to the White House. Okay, education has to be reformed. Well, we need to bring back education in the trades. We need to bring back apprenticeships. We need to bring back small business ownership education. Folks, we had these types of programs in the past, and they essentially disappeared. And we've created a system. It's basically an academic system, a one-size-fits-all system, which is total nonsense. Not everyone is cut off to work in some office or at a computer someplace. Although you would think differently considering the younger generations born with cell phones in their hands. But the general idea is not everyone's going to go to work with their brains. Some people are going to go to work with their hands. Some people are going to go to work with a combination of their brains and their hands. So we need the proper education to meet those needs. Internet-based learning has to be encouraged. It has to be provided for. Some people can learn very well by themselves. We also need to provide vouchers. If mom and dad does not want to send their kid to the local public school system, they should have a right to choose where they want to send those kids. And if they cannot afford the tuition in the local private schools, then the money that would have been spent on that public education needs to be transferred over to pay for that private education. We can no longer have public education producing shoddy results. General idea, we'll come back to that again as time goes on. Gas prices are an amazing problem. This is another example of price gouging. We have more than 100,000 rigs in the United States. We have the oil companies refusing to bring oil rigs back online. They are gouging the American customers. They are lining their pockets with undeserved gains. I'm going to put a big tax on oil companies. I'm going to use the Defense Production Act to bring more than enough oil wells back online and to bring the price of gas down. Now we're going to have to increase our green energy resources, no doubt, because we're in a transition period where we must get off of fossil fuels and go all the way to alternative forms of energy. But that's a process. It's a transition. It takes time. And during this process, we are not going to let speculators and oil companies live like kings and queens while the rest of us suffer. We're taking that money back. Believe me, it won't be long. When we get to the White House, changes are going to happen. Let's move on. Housing is extremely important across the country. Uh, Guaranteed mortgages, just like we provided guaranteed student loans, just like we're going to create 30 million new entrepreneurs across the U.S. If somebody wants to buy a house and it's their first time out, so to speak, they should be given a guaranteed mortgage. We don't want renters in America. We want to reduce the number of renters. We want to increase the number of homeowners. For something so basic as a house, the government needs to provide a guaranteed loan. Forget about credit scores. They can take their entire life to pay for that house because, after all, they're going to be living in that house very often for their entire life. So that is the useful time period of that house to the hypothetical person I'm talking about. So we must have a government mortgage program that will provide everybody who wants a house a basic house. Rental income, I'm going to put a tax of 50% on rental income. We do not want corporations buying up suburbs and large numbers of residential housing and then turning around and renting them out in a lifelong cycle of living off of undeserved rents. We're changing the economy. We're changing the country. That's got to happen. And it will happen when I get to the White House. Food benefits. Okay, folks, everybody who is in retirement and who makes the basic retirement income, as well as everybody else in the country who falls below a certain income level to be decided, will be getting food benefits. No question about it. We've got the food resources in America. There's absolutely no reason why anyone in this country should starve, especially the folks in the lower end of the economic scale. It just makes no sense. That's going to be addressed. Retirement. I don't think Americans realize we have a huge retirement problem right smack at our front door. It's worse. It's a speeding freight train that's knocking at the front door. We're about ready to get smashed by it. Large numbers of baby boomers did not save enough for retirement. With the recent boost in inflation, large numbers of people, even if they do have full retirement benefits, are not going to be able to survive in any humane way over the next 20 years as we deal with all of the economic dislocations that are occurring. So essentially, what does this mean? It's very simple. When I get to the White House, we are going to institute a minimum $3,000 per month retirement benefit for anyone who is 65 years or over. And of course, if they can do part-time jobs in retirement, more power to them. But that's a major problem because we have a lot of single folks. We have a lot of people who didn't save for retirement. We have a massive increase in cost of living. We're going to have to address this problem, and we need to address it now. And in addition to these domestic benefits, let me address health care. I've talked about it in another video, but now we'll talk about it again. Primary care across the country, we'll just call it the family level of getting diagnosed, going in for evaluations and tests. Primary care services are going to be made freely available to everyone across the country. We need to prevent major health catastrophes from happening, and the only way to do that is to catch stuff early, and the only way to do that is to make sure people will run off to the doctor whenever they see a bump on their side or on the end of their nose, for that matter. But you know what I'm saying. They need to get checked up often to prevent dreadful things happening, which of course means a lot more money to both the system and those people. So those are a list of the benefits that we have to implement and do it quickly. We can't be the party of misers. We can't live as though no one else cares but ourselves, because if we don't address these problems, they just become more expensive for the society as a whole. Now, the big question is, and this is where the Republicans are going to be very happy, and this is where the Democrats are going to be confused. But the question is, how do we pay for all of this and also reduce the tax burden? Well, this is very simple, and this is what I alluded to earlier. One of the mainstays of a Quigley presidency is going to be the creation of 30 million new entrepreneurs across America. I've devoted a couple of videos on this topic, but it's very simple. Think about the family farm prior to the age of industrialization. Everybody took care of themselves, no question about it. Now, of course, in those days, the standard of living wasn't that great, but for the most part, everybody had a roof over their head, they had food to eat, they had gainful employment to pursue, and they had lots of time where they could relax and do other things. But the whole point here is, if we create more self-sufficient people, they don't need government resources. They don't need retirement benefits. They can take care of themselves. What does all of that mean? Well, it means less government cost. So by making more entrepreneurs in the society, we're cutting down on the need for government expenses. Speaking of government expenses, do we know that the United States economy is roughly about 21 or 22% government? So if you divide up the different sectors and which part of the economy is coming from which industry and which sector, we discover about 21, 22% is from the government. This is a problem, guys. We have way too many government workers. We need to reduce that number to about 15%. So what I'm going to do, as soon as I take office, we're going to work with as best as we can. But if we have to mandate it, we will. We're going to talk to the federal government, of course, the states, the counties, the cities. We're going to do an across-the-board cut. We must get the overall government expenses down to about 15% of the economy. So essentially, we're going to do away with about a quarter of the government. But think about this: we're creating a lot of self-sufficient people, so this should be a very easy to achieve goal. What else do we need to do? We need to promote and increase the number of multi-generational households. When grandmom and granddad are living in the house, that provides child care for the kids, that allows mom and dad to pursue career activities. And there are going to be families where there are even great-grandparents in the house. The multi-generational household is cheaper for everybody concerned. And this is the way humans live for the vast majority of humankind. It's only been since the end of World War II that we've lived in this sort of satellite 2 or 3 people household. That's got to change. In addition to that, we're going to move on. We have to increase the green energy resources in the country. We have to do that in order to survive as a species. If we don't do it, we're basically screwed. But the energy savings is also going to benefit the economy. So by getting our energy from solar panels and wind turbines, and by heavily insulating our house and planting trees that grow 20 or 30 feet around our house to provide us with year-round shade, and all of the other energy-saving devices like heat pumps, for example, just to name a couple of examples off the top of my head, all of these will reduce our demand for energy. Next on the list, and ultimately what we're doing, is we are recreating a cottage industry across the United States. All of the products and services that we consume locally should be made locally. We're going to reshore a mass production, which is currently located in countries like China or India or any of the other developed countries of the world. And finally, surprise of all surprises, I propose that we eliminate all income taxes, both state and federal, for every person making less than $50,000 per year. Again, folks, the logic is very simple. If people can take care of themselves without the burden of tax dollars to take care of others, or if a family unit, an extended family unit, can take care of themselves without the need to support others through their tax dollars, that $50,000 per year will go a long way to supporting that person. You see, what's happened today, folks, is uh, the Republicans have it right. We want the government out of our lives. There's no question about it. It's too much. The government makes it more difficult for people to live, especially in the lower income bracket of below $50,000 per year. But on the other hand, the Democrats have some things right. And we need to provide for people who, with the programs I listed above, for people who really do have problems taking care of themselves. So, as the Independence Party and as the first president of the Independence Party, we're going to take a different approach. We're going to take the best of the Republicans, which is where does all the money come from? How do we organize our taxes? We're going to take the best of the Democrats, and we're going to put programs in place, improve programs that are already in place, and we're going to rationalize the society and make it way more efficient and functional. Of course, there are going to be some slight losers as we go along the way. If you've seen my videos, you know I've got it in for Wall Street. And, ultimately, Wall Street will still wind up a winner. But like in every boxing match, they're going to take a couple on the chin. And that's the way it has to be. And, along those lines, we're going to do things like, if you're a CEO of a major publicly listed company, you're not making 1,000 times what the lowest guy in that company is making. We're going to rein these outrageous compensation packages in. It's just too much. If a person cannot do a great job, for a much smaller amount of money, then they don't need to be doing the job. Period. There are others that will do it. So we've got some dislocations that are way out of control in both the positive and the negative side. And in a nutshell, for this video, this is the taste of what the domestic agenda is going to look like in a little bit greater detail. So folks, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to put up a website today. It's Robert Quigley for President. If I don't get it up today, it'll be up tomorrow. Put your comments below. Let me know where I'm right. Let me know where I'm wrong. Spread the word. We're recruiting members of the Independence Party all across the country. There are thousands upon thousands of jobs and thousands upon thousands of ways that you can help. It starts with us, folks. If we don't change the system, the entrenched parties are not going to change it. It's certainly not going to change by itself. So now is the time. We must step up and we must do the things to make America greater. Until we meet again.